Hey player, what you gonna get her for Christmas? Yeah. What you gonna get that boy? Come on, come on, come on. What you gonna get her for Christmas? Yeah. What you gonna get that boy? Right at that. Come on back. Say what?
Greetings, everyone. Happy December 1st. It's RJ here, and I'm back with another episode of Sips and Chill, Sips and Chill, Sips and Chill, Sips and Chill with RJ. Sips and Chill. Morning. It's morning when I'm filming this, and it is a cold, freezing morning in Tallahassee. It's 42 degrees. I have socks on. Y'all see I got long sleeves on, but happy December. Happy December. This is cocoa. I'm sipping on cocoa this morning. Warm. Something warm. Fresh and made to perfection. Hope you guys getting your coffee or chocolate, whatever makes y'all happy. I don't do the coffee, but I do the cocoa. But hi, has it been a while? Thank you everyone who was following on Sings and Chill with RJ. I am having a little sing-off, I have enough favorite Christmas songs to sing for you guys so that you guys have some singing chill with me, because yeah, I'm excited. Are you guys excited about the birth of Christ? Excited about Santa coming to town? I hope you guys got your little ones. And remember, the reason for the season is love. The season of perpetual hope. And I hope you guys got your Christmas movies out. I started watching last night. Yes, November 30th. I'm down on movie 3. I haven't watched it yet. I'm still deciding if I want to watch Elf or what I want to watch, or I'll Be Home for Christmas with Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Don't know which yet, but when I turn the TV on, we will decide then. But yeah, hi. So what are we discussing today? You guys want to discuss a movie? How about I discuss with you guys my favorite Christmas movie of all time? My second favorite movie of all time. My favorite black and white golden age of Hollywood film. It's a Wonderful Life. This movie, for several reasons, is my favorite movie. We're going to forgive a few people. We're going to forgive some people. Yes. But It's a Wonderful Life is my favorite Christmas movie of all time. Usually I watch it kind of in the middle of the month, then I watch it again for Christmas Eve. It's like a tradition, because the first time I think I watched it, it was on Christmas Eve, and I fell in love with it, and how James Stewart and Donna fell in love, and this beautiful story of a man who gave up hope and was thinking of committing suicide because at that point he thought that life wasn't worth living anymore. And then we go back through his life to see how everything went down, and then his guardian angel saves him, and he gives him a glimpse of life without him, so he knows that life is truly a wonderful life. This movie actually hit me, guys, when I was little. I wasn't little, I was in middle school, but it was a time, if you guys remember any of my old videos, when I said that was a year when I really just wanted to give up on life and myself. And then it came at a point where I was like, it's such a beautiful film, beautifully directed by Frank Capra Jr. And it was beautifully done, and it was just surrounded by love and hope and joy. And something I would love, I would love if I could have a glimpse of my life, to know what it would be like. Because so many lives, one life touches so many other lives, and when he's not around, he leaves an awful big hole in the world, doesn't he? Or for me. It's just interesting thought, but I love It's a Wonderful Life. It came out in the 40s. James Stewart actually was in one of the wars. I think World War I, if not World War II. He was a pilot, and then he came back to do acting. And Donna was his first kiss since he was back from the army on screen. So it was he was hesitant. But they also labeled their first kiss in the movie, as one of the greatest kisses of all time. I was like, that it was pretty kind of hot, because I'm about to say, even for the 40s, it was very passionate, because a lot of their kisses weren't even like really what I would say passionate. It was just, it wasn't like a nice little, it was a like a quick, it was quick. It wasn't like a quick smooch. But it was almost also kind of hidden. And it's like what they tried to implicate is there's a lot of passion between the characters. But It's a Wonderful Life always touches me. If you guys have not watched it, it's on several platforms. You can buy it. I guarantee you won't regret it. My grandpa, like, I'd watch it like every year in his house, and he said, "Are you watching Jimmy Stewart again?" And I was like, "Yep." He was like, "Ugh." He couldn't stand. He's sad. He couldn't stand him, and he was like, he was a lazy cowboy. I don't like him. I was like, wow, Gramps, because he was into westerns, but he was really a James Stewart fan. Um, but It's a Wonderful Life. It starts off really beautifully. I have it in black and white in color, but I prefer black and white with this movie, of course. Classic, especially for the 40s. So it starts off when everybody's praying for George Bailey, our main protagonist of the film. And everybody's praying for him. His best friends all over town are praying for him. His children are praying for him, his mother, his wife. And then it's like they show the heavenly bodies of the stars, and they're angels, and they're like, okay, so we got a lot of prayers for George Bailey. And then he's like, oh no, this is his night. This is the night if he decides if he wants to live or not. So we need to send his angel. And it turns out to be Clarence. So Clarence has to find out within 15 minutes what George's life was like. So it's like they kind of pause it, and then Clarence gets this quick overview, and it's the same overview that we get. So we learn as a child like how he was popular, and how he had all these friends, and how his brother almost drowned while they were playing on ice, but he jumped in to save his brother. But the water was so cold, and he lost hearing in one of his ears. I'm not sure if I think it was his left ear. And then how he worked for, like, even though he was like 12, he was like a little soda jerk. Like back in the day, in the drugstores, they had the candy counter and the ice cream counter. And he was, like I said, he was around like 12, maybe 13 years old. And he was a soda jerk, and he would make ice cream for people and candy. He would pass out candy. And Mr. Gower, he seemed like a really depressed, grumpy old man, but it turns out he had lost his son. And he was drinking, he was smoking, and he wasn't watching what he was doing. And he was going to give the drugs full of poison to a little boy who was sick. George wanted to go ask his father for advice. Ask Dad, he knows. And he couldn't get it from his father. And his father had to deal with the meanest, richest man in town, who was Henry Potter. And we will see him again in the movie, because he's in this movie a lot. And he practically stood up for his father. He vouched for his father in front of him. He's like, "You're the biggest man in town, better than him, better than everybody. Don't let him talk down like that to you, Pop." And he was like, "Okay, go home and we'll talk tonight, okay?" So he never got to ask his father for the advice, because he didn't know what to do. But when he got back to Mr. Gower's store, Mr. Gower saw him, and he was like, where did you put those drugs? And then he was trying to tell him that he poisoned it, but Mr. Gower ends up like slapping him. He slaps him so hard in his ear that he lost hearing in. Blood was coming out of his ear. And then he was... George was telling him not to do that. And then he told him that he put poison in the capsules he was supposed to put the medicine in. And when Mr. Gower realized that's what he did, he realized that George saved his life. Because if he delivered those drugs, that boy could have died. He could have lost everything. Not just losing his son, but on top of that, he could have lost his practice as a physician, like a pharmacist. He could have lost everything. But George had his back. And years later, what we do, George is grown, and we see James Stewart, and he's ready to travel. Like, he has dreams of traveling, and So it's like the night of Harry's graduation party. It's prom. It's like kind of like a winter prom or something, or I think it's a spring prom, and it's like in 1928. So he ends up meeting Mary, one of his friend's sisters he knew about, but he didn't realize how grown she was and how gorgeous he was, and she was already in love with him. I kind of skipped the part where he was giving her candy, or actually ice cream, and he was telling her that she needed to try it with coconuts, and she was like, "Is this the ear you can't hear on? Oh, George Bailey, I'll love you to the day I die." And it's like she made a wish in his ear, because they ended up getting married later and falling in love. And one of the most beautiful scenes I think in cinema is when he's walking her home after the prom, after they had a really good time, and she they were making wishes in an old house, and he even made a joke, "I wouldn't live in it as a ghost." He asked her to tell her what she wished for, and then she said no, because it might not come true. He's like, "What is it that you want, Mary? You want the moon? Just say the word, I'll throw a lasso for you, and I'll pull it down for you." I was like, "Oh, that's so sweet. It's so romantic." They don't do that too much in movies anymore. It's just about fornication now. It's eye roll. But yeah, so that night also his father died, and George had to take over the business. And he let his brother go to school on his scholarship, and his college money that he worked hard for. And then what was supposed to happen was his brother was supposed to come back and run the business, but he came back with a wife, and his father-in-law gave him a job where he'd be making more money and he'd be traveling a little bit more. And yeah, so George is like, I can't take that away from him. George had a very, very good soul. Not wanting to let people down, always wanting to be the best he could for his brother and his family. And his mother was ready for him to get married, and then she said, "You need to go see Mary." And he said, "I see right through you, Mom." But they fell in love that night, which we get to see that beautiful, passionate kiss, and they get married. It's like the next scene, they're like, "Here they come," and they're coming down, and it's raining on their wedding day, but everybody's throwing rice, and they're just happy. And this is supposed to be George and her honeymoon. They're supposed to go, but it's the Great Depression. The bank is closed. The bank is closed, and everybody wants money from the building and loan, which is the Bailey building and loan, George Bailey's family business. And they ended up using their honeymoon money to help everybody. And then he said, "Don't worry about it. Pay us back later. We're going to keep it." And they end up having the honeymoon at the old Granville house that Mary wished for. And she said, "You want to know what I wished for? I wished for this." And then they have this beautiful little romantic life. George, of course, he wants more out of life. He wants to give his wife more. Henry F. Potter is trying to get rid of George the best way he can, and he can't. He even offered him a job, and George was like, "No, no, no. In the scheme of things, I would see you as nothing but as a curvy little spider." That's exactly what he told him. Because it's like he was trying to get him out of the way best way he knew how. Best way he knew how was to have him work for him. And he even called him a warped, frustrated old man, which was earlier in the movie before he got married. But he knew. George knew better. He knew not to trust Potter. George was wise, and he was young. And so it shows kind of like Mary got pregnant, and then we show kind of like a quick view of life for Clarence and how he couldn't go into the war because of his ear. His brother, everybody in town did something. Even his wife like helped people like give food and stuff. And his mom, his best friends, a lot of them did it. But like his brother became a war hero. He saved people from kamikazes. He got the Medal of Honor from the president on Christmas Eve. And then here comes the real messed up part. So his uncle that he runs the building along with, Uncle Billy, he messed up and lost the money, the $8,000 for their that they need to put into the bank for the job. Messed up, lost it. And what happened is he gave it to Potter. And Potter, he was nothing but a thief. He knew that was the only way he could stop him is by taking the money, but the money was given to him. It wasn't given to him. What happened was Uncle Billy had wrapped it up in newspaper, and Potter snatched it from him because he was mad. And he was like, sometimes you don't need to tell devils, like, you don't need to brag to devils about how good life is, because they'll snatch it away from you if there's a moral to that part of the story. George is frustrated. He's mad. He doesn't know what to do. He even, like, he takes it out on everybody around him. He practically cussed out Zuzu's teacher. That's his, they have 4 children by this time. Zuzu is the youngest girl, and she's sick because she came home from school without her jacket on. She brought a flower, and he cussed the teacher out for not letting her dress up appropriately. And then her husband and him got into an altercation over the phone. He went to go get a drink after he went to go to Potter, and Potter said, I'm going to call the police on you. Potter said, you're worth more dead than alive. And sadly, George took it to heart. He had one bad day and took a comment to heart because he knew that he could lose his life. And his life was wonderful. He went to a bar. He actually prays. And they said that Jimmy Stewart, in real life, he didn't have to cry, but it's like something came over him where he had to pray to God, and he was crying like, God, you know, I'm not a praying man, but I'm at the end of my rope, and I need you to show me the way. And his friend who owns the bar, Mr. Martini, and Nick, who was the cash register guy or the bartender, they were trying to comfort him, and they were like, you need to go home. It's Christmas Eve. Your family's waiting for you. And interestingly, the teacher's husband, who he cussed out on the phone, was sitting right by him, and he knocked him out. But George had so many people in that bar that loved him that came to his aid immediately, and he didn't even realize it. But at that point, Martini kicked that guy out. And George was just like, that's what I get for praying. And it was like he was done. And he goes to jump into the river. He can swim, but he was just going to let himself drown. But Clarence is on the bridge waiting for him. And what he does, instead of George killing himself, he jumps into the river to save him. Because he knew he would save his life, because he knew he had a good heart and good soul. So then he tries to tell him, your life is worth living, man. Your life is worth living. But George he's half drunk. He's mad. He's not happy. And he makes a comment, it'd be better if I wasn't born. And then Clarence is like, what? I wish I'd never been born. And then he said, you can't talk like that. And he was like, wait a minute, that's an idea. What do you think? He was talking to Joseph. He's like, all right, George, you got your wish. You've never been born. Then you know what happens? It stops snowing outside. George can hear in both ears. His clothes are dry. And Clarence and him start walking around Bedford Falls, the town that he lives in. But it's not Bedford Falls anymore. It's weird. It's called Pottersville now. Why is it called Pottersville? Because Henry F. Potter got to rule the town the way he wanted because George didn't exist. All the friends he had don't know who he is. They don't love him. They don't like him. His mother is a bitter old woman. His friend Ernie, the cab driver, doesn't know him. He breaks it to him that he's not married, and his wife, and his house where his family lives, no one's there at the old Granville house. And they're like, this house hasn't been lived in 20 years. And he's yelling for his wife, his children. No one's there. And as I said before, Clarence tells him after he leaves his mom's house, it's strange, isn't it? The way one man's life touches so many others. When he's not around, he leaves an awful big hole in the world, doesn't he? Then he said, I think you got me under some sort of spell, or you've hypnotized me, and I know how to get out of it. The last man I spoke before you did this was Martini. Remember the guy that owned the bar? Well, it turns out Nick owns the bar, and because Nick didn't have George as a friend, Nick was a jerk. All right, I have choice words for that, but I probably have kids watching this and I want to be careful. That's not the word I want to use. The word I want to use for Nick, it rhymes with Nick, okay? Because that's what he was acting like. He was a jerk. And he ends up going to a cemetery. The cemetery was not there when George was alive, but what he ends up finding is his little brother's grave. And the music is really sad and somber, and the wind is blowing, and it's like the voices over the wind are declaring how the wind is. And this scene actually makes me cry, because like he was like, your brother Harry fell through the ice and died at the age of 9. And he's like, that's a lie. Harry barely went to war. He said all those men on that transport. He's like, all those men on that transport died. Harry wasn't there to save them because you weren't there to save Harry. See, you actually had a wonderful life. Don't you understand how harsh it would be if you just threw it away? Then it's like he just cried over his brother's grave. Then it's like, where's my wife? Where's Mary? And then he's like, I can't tell you that. He said, I don't know how you know this all about me, but I need you to tell me where my wife is. The love of his life. She's about to close the library. It was a little harsher, but I won't get into it. And when Mary comes out, so like Donna Reed is like gorgeous when George is in her life. And she's like a spinster. She has no makeup on. She had nobody to look pretty for. Her hair is in a hat. She's wearing glasses like to cover, kind of like, they're almost as big as mine, but like to cover her face. And she kind of walks, she's young, but she walks like an old maid, like an old woman. She holds her purse kind of close to her, and like he tries to talk to her, but she doesn't know him, and he's trying to grab her, and he's saying, I need you, I love you, and she's freaked out because who are you, bro? Get off of me. And like, yeah, at that point I think he lost it, so he's calling for Clarence, and the police are called, and it's one of his friends that's not his friend anymore, so he ends up punching him in the face. The original Bert and Ernie was Bert punching Bert in the face, and he runs back to the bridge, and he's calling for Clarence, and he's asking for Clarence to get him back to his life he wanted to live again. And Bert is following him, and he starts crying, and it starts snowing again, and he's like, I want to live again, please God, please let me live again. And then Bert's calling him by name, George, what are you doing? And then he was like, he thinks he's still stuck in the reality that Clarence showed him he didn't exist. But then he's like, wait a minute, Bert, you know me? And he's like, no, I've been looking over town for you. I saw your car crash into a dream. He was like, wait a minute, your lips bleeding. And he was like, my mouth's bleeding, Bert, my mouth's bleeding. He's like, Zeus's petals. There they are. What do you know about that? Merry Christmas. And he's running, and he realizes like everything's back to normal. He's not in Potterville, but he is back home in Bedford Falls, and he's screaming Merry Christmas to everybody, and everybody knows him because it's a small town. And like, Merry Christmas, George. And he even goes to Mr. Potter. He's like, Merry Christmas, Mr. Potter. He's like, a Happy New Year to you in jail. Go home. They're waiting for you. And everybody's waiting for him. But Mary knew he was in trouble, so she called everybody. I'm getting teary-eyed talking to you guys about it. It's such a good movie. And so his children are there waiting for him, even though there's also a bank examiner, the police, reporters, and he's just smiling. He's like, I'm going to jail. It's like, it doesn't matter because I'm alive. I'm alive. Y'all can't take it from me. I'm alive. I get it. And his wife comes in, and she's calling him by name, and they're kissing, and they're happy, and the kids are hugging him. This is like a beautiful, happy family reunion. And then what she does is she drives him into the living room, and she puts him in front of the table, and she has, because they were supposed to throw a Christmas party at his house. So they come in, and they dump more than $8,000 in front of him. What she did is she told people, hey, he needed money. And they were like, is that all? Like, we got you. Like, anything that they were loaned, he loaned them, and they never paid him back. It was Christmas, the season of perpetual hope. They gave him more than they needed to make more houses, to pay their bills for the year. And they just start singing Christmas carols. And not only, he had a friend from childhood, Sam Rainwhite. He's one of the silliest people in the movie. If you watch it, he always goes, yeah, even since childhood. And even Potter said, you haven't called him? He said, I can't get in touch with him. He's not in the country. But he did get wired by his old boss, Mr. Gower, and he sent him $25,000. So on top of whatever they had on the table for George, there was another 25,000 for him, so they could be taken care of. All his bills were taken care of, and how many ever houses he needed to build for anybody, it was all there. And then Harry comes into the room, and he's shaking his hand. He's happy to see his little brother because he remembered in the life he didn't exist, his brother was dead. And then he says, "That's a good idea, honey. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town." And then I know that's when I start crying. I was like, oh God, he didn't realize how blessed he was. Oh my gosh, it's just such a beautiful movie. And then Clarence leaves a gift for him on the table. Yes, I am getting teary-eyed right now because I love this movie so much and it's so sweet. He leaves a book on the table. It's a Tom Sawyer book that his wife gave him. And he wrote a letter for George in the cover of it. And it says, "Dear George, remember, no man is a failure who hath friends. Thanks for the wings. Love, Clarence." And then they're like, "Who's Clarence?" And he said, "Oh, that's a gift for a dear old friend of mine." And the bell starts ringing. And Zuzu, his daughter, says, "Daddy, every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings." And he's like, "That's right. That boy Clarence." And they're singing Christmas carols. They're singing Auld Lang Syne as the movie ends. And everybody's just happy. It's just a beautiful, happy, oh my gosh, it's such a good movie. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it. I don't know if I'm gonna watch it. Like I said, I watch it like on the 8th of December or the 10th of December, like a few days before, like a week or 2 weeks before Christmas. And I will have my cry fest, like I am now. Because I'm telling you, it's a great movie. Even Elvis loved this movie, okay? So, I mean, if it was good enough for Elvis, it's great for me. And I love this movie before I even found that out. So, yeah, that's how I like to bring in my Christmas. I hope you guys have a good, I'm coming back to you guys. I would love to know what your favorite Christmas movies are, what your favorite Christmas memories are. My favorite Christmas memory, several memories. My little brother loves to call them core memories because he's watched Inside Out so much. So a core memory is in December or late November when my grandparents, when I was little, before the boys were born, I was around 5, 6, or 7. My grandma would be decorating the inside of the house. She would be cooking her fruit cakes or her raisin cakes, or my favorite, which were the pecan cakes, which was a pound cake with pecans in it. She'd be cooking those. Grandpa's on the outside of the house, putting all the lights up on the house. It's a beautiful sunny day as the sun is setting in Kings Ferry Hills. And grandma has music playing, so she either has Donny Hathaway playing, or she has the Jackson 5 playing, or so many different other people, Lionel Richie or something, the old black classics like the Temptations. And those are some of my favorite songs. Even today I will play those because it reminds me of those times and just the feel-good feelings. And grandpa has the doors open, so even though it was kind of cold, and even if they have the heater running, because he's going back and forth in the house trying to make sure all the bulbs are working, he has the ladder and he's putting all the lights on, and I'm helping him a little bit, and I'm helping grandma, and the house would be like a wreck. But before 8 or 9 o'clock, grandma has the house decked out in Christmas stuff and gear, and it is just beautiful, and it's clean and neat, and it's Christmas-esque. And I wish those days would come back once more. Why did those days ever have to go? I try to keep those alive in my heart for always. Well, anyone, again, happy December. Like, follow, subscribe, and remember to get you some cocoa. RJ. This is